If you saw my calendar, you would think I'm insane.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields Milburn. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, TK Coleman.
Let's create a great day.
Alabama's here.
Hi, everybody.
We've got the rest of our team in the studio. Coming up today on this free public minimal episode, we are joined by Erwin Raphael McManus. He's back. He's got a brand new book out as well. It is called Mind Shift. It doesn't take a genius to think like one. Together, we'll talk to a listener about the upsides and downsides of changing her mind. And then we'll talk to another listener about the true cost of pursuing her dreams. Then we've got our lightning round segment and a very special sucky ads segment for you as well. And a listener tip, you can check out the full 2-hour maximal edition of episode 418, where we answer 5 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast episode is out right now, patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free because, say it with me, y'all, advertisements suck. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or a comment for our show, give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice recording to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Leanne.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leanne Weidlich. I live in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and as a point of reference, I live right next door to the city of Scranton, which is home to the famous TV show, The Office. Even at a young age of 52, I sometimes feel a sense of guilt and the need to defend myself for changing my mind. My question is twofold. First, where does this evolve from? And secondly, do you think it's more commonly seen in women versus men? I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone at The Minimalists for their time and dedication. I hope to see you soon in my neck of the woods. Thanks again and take care.
Erwin, I'd love to start with you because in your book, you talk about these 12 mind shifts. There's actually 13 because mind shift 0 is change your mind. And what I've learned is that a willingness to change your mind, especially in the face of new evidence, it corresponds with our ability to let go. And so someone who is not willing to change their mind, maybe they're not willing to let go of their past in order to get to the future that they want to go to.
Yeah, I agree. I think the question is really interesting. And even when she puts it in male, female kind of categories, which makes me a little nervous. But I actually think that culturally there's a perception that women change their mind more. But I also think culturally there's a perception that it's not okay for men to change their mind. And if a man changes his mind, he looks like he's inconsistent. And if a woman changes her mind, a lot of times it seems that she's adaptive. And so it can go either way. You know, in some ways, it depends on what you're changing your mind about and when. If you're changing your mind when it's convenient to you, like you have hard lines when it relates to other people, but soft lines when it relates to you, then I could see why someone might be upset. Wait a minute, you had this position yesterday. What's going on? But I think it's really important actually to change your mind. In fact, I think it's a great practice. Everybody in the cultural conversation about mental health talks about mental health. They talk about mental strength, but very few people talk about mental agility. And the reality is that as you get older, mental agility is probably the most important dynamic in your mental capacity. I'm 65. And the way people are seen when they get older is, well, you're supposed to become rigid. But the reality is that I meet a lot of 25-year-olds and 35-year-olds who are incredibly mentally rigid. They're dogmatic. They're very, very slow to change. They're resistant to new ideas. And I think a huge part of it is that I've spent my life developing mental agility. And so what I would say is more than thinking about changing your mind is keeping your mind agile to new information, to new dynamics, to new environments, new circumstances, to realize that you may think you know something, but you only believe something, which is different than knowing. And which is kind of funny because my wife and I were very, very different. We've taken this assessment called the Strength Finder, and her number 2 strength is called belief. My wife is structured where she has 2 or 3 beliefs and she holds them really tightly. My belief would be way at the bottom. I have something called ideation. I have 1,000 ideas, and I'm not even sure if I agree with my ideas. And I remember we were driving one time, and I'd been to this place she'd never been. And we got to a turn. She goes, turn right. And I knew it was left. But I've been married 40 years, and I know how to be happy. So I just turned right because she insisted. And I said, honey, it's left. She goes, no, it's right. So we turned right, and I just started driving. And I just kept driving and driving and driving until she got really quiet. And then she said, you might want to turn around. And as we turned around and we're driving, I said, I just want to understand something. And she said, what's that? And I said, what does it feel like to be so right? Like to be so certain that you're right. I said, because even though I'd been there when you said turn right and you were so dogmatic, I began questioning myself, going, well, maybe I just thought it was left. Maybe I remembered wrong. You'd never been there, but you knew it was right. Some people, I think, are more predisposed to becoming mentally rigid faster. I think some people are more predisposed to being more mentally agile. And it's just like with super athletes. We're not all going to be Olympians, but we should pay attention to what they do to become healthier. I play chess, and I play with a computer at 2200, which is fairly high. And he just absolutely destroys me. But I'm only going to learn if I play someone, in a sense, smarter than me. And it's really important to learn from people who instinctively or almost intuitively do something better than us. And so I pay attention to people who are mentally agile. And I try to learn their characteristics and try to take on characteristics like curiosity, imagination, exploration, new experiences, because I know those things actually help me. And when you're mentally agile, you start making the shifts that you need to make. You make the mind shifts that are necessary at the right time in your life.
That's right. I think there's a relationship that can be had between structure and change that can be really useful for people that have this kind of challenge. So I remember I had a mentor helping me schedule out my day. And as she was writing down all the things I would do, I says, wait a minute. This is just too much structure. I don't want to be someone that's stressed out all the time. And I reacted to her writing down when I would sleep and when I would have recreation time. And I thought that was just an insane way to live. And she says, do you know who's really stressed out in life? It's not the people that schedule recreation time. It's the people like you who just improv their way through everything, and your recreation time and your sleep time gets away from you. Aren't you coming to me because you're already stressed out? And I said, that's a really good point. Well, there's a similar kind of structure we can create around our freedom to change our minds. One example of this would be if you want to try something new, instead of just saying, I'm going to try it, and then when I feel a different emotion, I'm going to try something else, say, okay, how long am I going to try it for? Like, I'm going to take a little freedom away so that I can know what it means to try this thing. I'm going to try it for 1 week. And even if on day 3, I absolutely hate it and don't want to do it anymore, I'm going to finish that 1 week commitment that I made, and then I change my mind. And so sometimes you can have an easier time giving yourself the permission to change if you just say when you want to do something. It's going to be 30 days, it's going to be 2 weeks, it's going to be 7 days. And that way, when you don't feel it anymore, you still have some consistency of doing what you said you were going to do.
What about the guilt that is associated with change? As Leanne brings up, that seems to be what she's really struggling with here. Like, I'd love to change my mind about these things, but then I feel guilty, or these other people shame me for having changed my mind.
They're usually shaming you because you held them to the standard that now you're changing. And so some of it is processing, helping them understand why you used to see it a certain way and what has happened in your life to help you move to a different change that allows you to see it a new way.
Yeah.
And because usually people aren't upset if you change, if it makes their life better.
That's a real good point.
They're not happy if you're making a change that affects their life in a negative way, or if it seems to suddenly give you a freedom you didn't give them. Because if you're telling your kids you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and then they see that you go to bed at 11, they're like, wait a minute, how come I have to go to bed at 8 and you get to stay up till 11? And you go, well, it's because I'm the adult, right? Or something like that. But eventually there comes a shift where you're going, wait a minute, you give yourself this freedom, but you don't give me this freedom. Right. And so I think when you're making a shift in your life, the shame can sometimes come because we don't admit we've made a change. We're trying to act like, no, we're being consistent. We didn't change. You don't experience any shame when you go, yeah, I used to believe that. And I've gone through this and now I believe this. Or I used to live my life with that kind of structure or, ideology. But now I've grown, and let me tell you why. I think people are incredibly respectful when you acknowledge you've changed and then you help them understand the process.
Sometimes when you're in these leadership positions and you're a visionary and you've got a high creativity, you can change on a dime, and the people that you're changing up things for are like, well, wait a minute, we built the whole system around the previous way. How are we going to adapt? So what do you do when you're in that situation? How do you change for good and help give security to the people who feel like, all right, well, what happens if you get a new inspiration in 7 seconds?
Yeah, no, I just had a leader ask me the same question. And I said, the reason you have a problem is because you committed people to a strategy rather than to an intention. If you commit to an intention, strategies change all the time. And what you help people understand is that strategy used to work to fulfill this intention, this purpose. But now that strategy doesn't work. So we're keeping our intention, we're changing the strategies. The best way to help a person deal with change is to help them see what doesn't change and why you're changing what you're changing so it stays in alignment with your values and your vision.
What I'm hearing here is that consistency can be overrated if we just cling to, well, you know what? I'm consistent. I've held on to my beliefs, even though they no longer serve me. I'll continue to turn in the wrong direction. But then also change can be overrated if you're just like a balloon that's changing from one corner of the room to the other. And it's about, okay, having a willingness to change in the face of new evidence, or there's a new strategy, but my intention is staying the same. Leanne, I'd love to send you a copy of Mind Shift by Erwin Raphael McManus. Enjoy that book. Our next question is from Alexa.
Hi guys, my name is Alexa and I'm calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been working a low-paying corporate job for the past 2 years since I graduated college. I received my bachelor's degree in interior design, and I am really passionate about my field, but I'm not passionate about the 9-to-5 office life and the immense amount of stress and responsibilities that come with this job. The short deadlines and highly stressful environment truly takes away all of the joy and creativity of why I fell in love with this field in the first place. So eventually I decided that I wanted to start my own business. I even signed up for an online course that takes you step by step on how to run your own business. At first, I was really excited. I was motivated. I got really far along in the course. I planned out the business and even started working on some practice projects for my portfolio. But then pretty soon after, I found myself getting overwhelmed. My current job and my day-to-day responsibilities caused so much burnout. So my question to you is, how do I pursue my dream of running my own business, having my own clients, picking my own hours, and all of those good things, but also finding the motivation to get it up and running when I'm already burnt out from work and I have in the back of my mind that it could take a really long time for me to build this up in order for it to match or eventually surpass my current income? Thanks.
Erwin, you and I talked a few years ago, and I quoted it for our last book, Love People, Use Things. I wanted to read a quick excerpt from that, because when I hear Alexa's question, what I'm hearing is a lot of me and my business and my dreams. And then you went on to say this. This is from page 291 of Love People, Use Things. I know what you're thinking. What about my dreams? Whatever your dream is, you can't fulfill your dream alone. What about my purpose? Whatever your purpose is, you weren't designed to fulfill that purpose alone. In fact, if you are pursuing a purpose in which you don't need people, that is not the purpose of your life. If you have a dream in which people are simply tools to be used to accomplish your outcome, that is not a dream at all. It is a nightmare. Talk to me about pursuing our dreams and doing it in a way that goes beyond ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. The question is about how does she start her own business or leave her present job that she's burnt out at. But what I actually hear is an immense amount of loneliness. I hear a person who's very much alone in the world and doesn't have any deep, meaningful relationships that she feels affirm her, connect to her, or are journeying with her. Because most of the time when you're thinking through your life in terms of job to job, career to career, dream to dream, and the language completely leaves out other people, it's because you're experiencing a deep sense of aloneness and disconnection in life. Mm. Most people are burnt out at work, not because their job is hard, but because they have no friends. In fact, I think most of the studies show that people love their job if they have one good friend at work. And even in our community at Mosaic, one of the things I talk about all the time is, I have a person on our team whose entire responsibility is to make sure that everyone's living in community on the staff. And that's his principal job. Because I know that hard work can actually be exhilarating if you feel you have friends. And easy work can feel overwhelming if you're all alone. So I don't know the whole dynamic, but I would say burnout has nothing to do with how hard the job is, but how alone she feels. Wow.
There's a moment in your book, it's the Mind Shift number 7. You talk about no one knows what they're doing. Yeah. And I think it's where Alexa is right now. It feels like everyone else around me has it figured out, but I don't have it figured out. And it seems like, well, the good news is, well, no, they don't have it figured out either.
No, because there are practical things I could say, like if you're trying to start your own business, find one client. No matter how much time your job takes, you still have probably the weekend free. Pick one client and start developing a portfolio by helping one person and see if you actually enjoy it. Maybe the life you're trying to create is a life you're going to hate too. And what you're actually missing isn't in that new career or that new dream or new idea. And so I would say, experiment. You have time for one client on the side. You have time to be interior designer. You have a friend who has a really ugly house. You do. You have a friend with no taste. I guarantee you. And that if you just volunteered and said, "Hey, I'm an interior designer. I really want to create a new life in a new world. Could I work on your house for free? You pay for the new furniture, but I'll do all the interior design for free. And then I'll take photographs of your house and I'll make that my portfolio." Like when you love something, you want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
When you love something, you do not need an income. You just do it because you're absolutely in love with the process. And that's how wealth is created. That's how a new career is created, because you're doing something you can't stop doing anyway. And that's when life is more fun and more enjoyable. I don't know if I've ever really experienced burnout. And some of it is, I've experienced dark periods of my life. So I don't want to act like I haven't had like heavy, times. But when I think of burnout, it's, oh no, my work has gone beyond my capacity. And I have never had a moment in my life where my work has gone beyond my capacity. But I have had times in my life where my relational burdens have gone beyond my capacity. Too much conflict, too much crisis, and too many things that feel out of control. And what I realize is that I'm doing more work now. In fact, if you saw my calendar, you would think I'm insane. And yesterday, my office was working with me, and they're using brown right now. It's all browned out. I mean, just every day for weeks and weeks, for months. And I don't feel any level of burnout at all at the level of work, because I love what I'm doing. It's so much fun. And each thing exhilarates me and actually energizes me. And so my solution for burnout is doing something else that you love. And it just gives you more energy. And doing it with people you love. My son Aaron was here just a little bit ago, and he's 35. And one of the things I always tell him, I said, look, the most important thing for you to do right now is to build deep, meaningful friendships. People that you're going to journey with for the next 15, 20 years of your life. Because those people will enhance your life. It doesn't even matter what idea you guys have. It doesn't matter what you think is going to make you, $100 million or whatever it is, Find people you love doing life with. You'll be poor and rich, and you'll always find a deep, meaningful purpose for life.
One of the insights from this that I really like is that relationship is the context where love and creativity really flourish. So I can say something like, hey, I love to act, but Does that mean I enjoy being alone in my apartment, reading monologues to myself and no one ever sees me do the thing? When we say we love something, we usually imagine an opportunity to use those gifts, to use those passions to be a blessing to other people. And so I love the suggestion of going beyond a practice project, finding a real person who's got a real problem and saying, hey, can I help you? Because you're already doing it for free. That's what a practice project is. You don't get paid for that. But now when you do something for a real human being, that's when your creativity is compelled. Because if the rewards and the consequences of the learning process aren't real, then the lessons don't truly become internalized. This is why students learn more about investing if they use 5 real dollars versus 100 fake dollars. Because that fake money can't teach you anything. But when you lose 5 real dollars, you're like, oh, like there's something about the way the brain processes information that makes you say, all right, I'm motivated and I'm going to think differently about this. And you got to get a real person involved if you want to overcome that burnout and get your creative energy flowing.
You know, I've noticed when you're talking about burnout here, the common theme is you can get burnt out working 5 hours a week.
That's right.
Or you could be totally free and compelled to do what you're doing for 80 hours a week. In fact, when you're starting your own business, quite often it's going to be that. You're going to be making no money and you're going to be working an obscene amount of hours.
Yeah.
But when you do that in a way that you're compelled by, it's not that it doesn't feel like work, but it doesn't feel like burnout. Alabama, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round where we answer your questions from TikTok.
Yes, indeed. You can follow The Minimalists on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Threads. We are at The Minimalists on all of those platforms. Now, during the lightning round, we each have 60 seconds to answer your question with a short, shareable, less than 140 character response. We put the text to these minimal maxims in the show notes over at theminimalists.com/podcast, so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media if you'd like. And by the way, if you want all of our minimal maxims in your email inbox each week, every Monday we'll start your week out with a bit of simplicity. All of our minimal maxims, all of our show notes, no spam, no junk, no advertisements ever, but we will put you on our email list. Theminimalists.email is how you can get all of our minimal maxims and our show notes in your inbox each week. Today's question is from Nikki.
You recently said there are no refunds on misspent time and misspent attention, but I think it's important to be able to relax without anyone judging how we choose to unwind. Is there a way to enjoy downtime without needing it to be productive?
I think this is a thoughtful question, TK, because quite often we think almost these are two things that, like, I either need to be productive or I am lazy.
Yeah.
Let's give him 60 seconds and allow him to pontificate.
Regret isn't just about failing at something. It can also be about succeeding at things that never really mattered to you. So there's the conventional concept of regret where you suppress your creative impulses, you say no to all your dreams, and then you end up losing at life and you say, I really could have been somebody. But then there's also playing these games where you actually turn out to be somebody in someone else's eyes. And then you go, wait a minute, I've spent my whole life acquiring stuff, acquiring status, and I never cared about any of this, you know? And so it's not about productivity versus relaxation, having something versus having nothing. It's about being lined up with the energy of who you really are. You can be hanging out with the family and condemning yourself for not being at the office, or you can be at the office and condemning yourself for not being with family. In either case, you're living a life of regret. It doesn't matter if you're at the office or with your family. If you're condemning yourself for what you do, then that's a life of regret. The solution isn't to go to the office or go out with your family. The solution is to line up with who you are and make peace with yourself, and then go do that and forget what everyone else thinks.
So that minimal maxim is there are no refunds for misspent time. And Nikki is assuming what? That being lazy is misspending your time. And being lazy to her, it sounds like, is just doing nothing for a period of time. Well, maybe that is the most appropriate way to spend your time, to do nothing right now and to simply be. And also, maybe misspending your time is constantly doing, busy, keeping your hands moving, keeping your mind moving, as though that is virtuous, right? But of course, and almost ironically, if you want to be someone. It's not about what you do, right? It's simply being. The doing is often a byproduct of who you are in the first place. And so sometimes it's totally appropriate to slack off. I don't call it slacking off, though. I just call it resting. Resting is appropriate. Am I slacking off if I'm sleeping at night while my body's repairing itself and I'm recovering and healing? Oh, what a slacker. He got a full 8 hours of sleep last night. What a loser. And then, of course, the opposite of that. It looks impressive to just be doing. What if you're playing basketball, but you're shooting at the wrong hoop? Well, is that productive? I guess technically, right? But you're not producing the results that you want either. And so I sympathize with Nikki's question. Yes, I want to be able to relax without anyone judging me. In fact, if I relax and other people do judge me, it's a pretty good sign of what they see about the world. It's a mirror about their thoughts of productivity and status and achievement and busyness. But it doesn't mean I need to subscribe to it. DK, you know we don't do ads on this podcast, right?
Oh, okay.
Like you don't know.
Well, I thought we just said that at every episode. I thought that was an advertisement.
Well, I'm going to make a change today. Today, we're actually going to play 4 advertisements.
Oh.
Okay.
That's not a joke. I'm actually going to play 4 advertisements.
We play advertisements every show and talk about them. What's different this time?
Well, we do have a segment called Sucky Ads, and we usually talk about it on the private podcast. I want to pull it forward to the public podcast. And as a listener, I want you to experiment with us for a moment. I ask that you listen closely to these 4 vapid advertisements so you can appreciate the fact that the minimalists don't ever run ads on our show. So don't pause, don't skip forward. I want you to suffer with us for a moment, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Professor Sean, take it away.
When you pick up some scratches, cause you want a fun break, the playful way you scratch is the next choice you should make. You can make your dog's leg kick and scratch with that. You could even grab a laser pointer and use your cat. You can build yourself a homemade scratching machine, or use a piece from your chess set. Go ahead, grab the queen. Scratch like a DJ with your record player. A cactus could scratch off that scratchable layer. Cause when it comes to scratching, there's a million playful ways. Thanks to scratchers from the California Lottery, a little play can make your day.
Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Oh, the irony of this. Imagine if the Minimalist Podcast, Malabama, was brought to you by California Scratching Lottery. I mean, the podcast that we're playing this from, I'm not going to call them out by name. It's because this could be any podcast, right? Because almost every podcast you tune into, they're playing ads like this. In fact, I think Professor Sean took only roughly half the ads from one episode. Let's go ahead and play the second one.
Do you save things on Instagram and TikTok and don't revisit them? No worries, you're not alone. But with the launch of the 2024 Subaru Impreza, it's time to get out and do the things you've always saved. The new Subaru Impreza enables you to do anything in your save folder thanks to its versatile and capable features.
The new Subaru Impreza features standard symmetrical all-wheel drive with a larger, more powerful 182 horsepower, 2.5-liter Subaru Boxer engine, sport-tuned suspension with upgraded brakes, and RS Sport cloth upholstery. Because you need a car that's up for whatever you've got hiding in your save folder. Versatile hatchback body style with up to 120.9 cubic feet of total interior space, more than the Toyota Corolla hatchback or Mazda 3 hatchback. Right-sized designs wraps a spacious, flexible interior with a sleek, maneuverable exterior.
Find out more information about the 2024 Subaru Impreza online at Subaru.com or by visiting your local Subaru retailer. Love what you can do in the 2024 Subaru Impreza.
I'm turning my mic on because the non sequitur at the beginning of that was amazing.
I'm so confused. What did we even listen to?
Hey, that level of confidence, though. Man, like, hey, did you have a bad day yesterday? You need to buy my new book.
I felt like almost like borderline depressed as I'm going through this. I can't believe I have to sit through this. And I'm the one who decided to do it. But you imagine how you would feel if we had to do this on every podcast. I know several people who, between the callers that call into their show, there's just an ad between every single caller. Imagine if we did that. It would sound much like this third ad we're about to play.
Oh, no.
You've been wanting to learn a new language because you have an upcoming international trip or studied a language in school and want to pick it back up again, then Rosetta Stone is for you. Rosetta Stone is the most trusted, time-tested app out there. It will fast-track your language acquisitions because lessons are immersive. They're designed to teach you to pick up a language in a natural way, the way you learned your language as a child.
And also, Rory, with Rosetta Stone's True Accent feature, you'll get feedback on how well you're pronouncing words. Rosetta Stone is convenient. It can be used on desktop or as an app, and lessons are as short as 10 minutes.
Getting back on the road, we toured all last year, and we will be the next, and I need to learn some languages, man.
French.
I just can't keep going everywhere just knowing English.
French.
When we travel to
I need
show.
French. Don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. New year, new language. For a very limited time, new Rory and Maul listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 40% off.
That's 40% off unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your 40% off at rosettastone.com/Rory Maul today.
Hey, wait, that one wasn't so bad. That wasn't like the non sequitur one.
Yeah, but there was some irony in that one, Professor.
Yeah, what is it? Language acquisition.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means.
I just tried searching acquisition just to make sure I'm not missing something. I'm pretty sure that's
y'all
not a word.
Y'all know what they were saying.
What?
Language acquisition.
Right, but there's the irony.
Right. It's a commercial about perfecting your language.
It was about learning. Y'all being too hard on this one. It was about learning a new language.
Okay, so you enjoyed that one. You'd really, hey, let's play it again.
Look.
Oh, wait, you don't want to hear it again?
I can, listen. I can legitimately say, I think it would be good for me to learn how to speak Spanish while still being real about the fact that I have not mastered English and that I still mispronounce words today.
Hey,
I might have just did it when I said non sequitur. Is that right?
That's just emphasis on the wrong syllable.
But TK, the point is, I mess up my speech all the time. Yeah. But if I messed up my speech in a commercial about selling you language,
joke's on the person who wrote you that check.
No.
I'm not mad at them.
You know what? I am mad. And here's why. I am mad because the joke isn't on the person who wrote the check.
No?
The joke is on the audience who has to tolerate this nonsense every single week. I mean, the joke's on you. You have become the product if you're forced to listen to this nonsense. And by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with Rosetta Stone or whatever automobile they were talking about earlier. I do have problems with the California lottery, but we can set that aside and we can recognize that some advertisements are more pernicious than others. That isn't even my problem here. It's gross to have to fill a podcast with this nonsense. It's ruining our listening experience, our viewing experience every time we have to do this. And by the way, do you think the people who are reading these ads are actually fans of the thing that they're talking? Do you think it's really like, oh man, I'm a real big fan of the scratch-off lottery, and that's why this is on my podcast? Or I definitely drive this car. I mean, I could talk about my Toyota because I've never been given a dime by Toyota, and I don't feel conflicted about that. And so there's even another layer here. What if Toyota now paid me to advertise on our podcast? Uh-oh. Now do I feel compelled to talk about them because they're paying me? And if so, am I indebted to them? Because now what happens? I have a check from them. They've paid me. I must say nice things about them. But what if my car broke down like it did a couple weeks ago? I probably couldn't talk about that on there because, oh man, I don't want to mess up the bag. Speaking of the bag, let's play the fourth advertise, which, by the way, this is only about half the ads you would hear in a normal podcast. Are you sick and tired of them yet? One more.
This might be my favorite.
Texas Pete is the sauce that allows you to sauce like you mean it, Maul. It's what people gather around, it's generosity in its simplest form, and it's a swagger people have who know what's good.
Each Texas Pete sauce is packed with bold, balanced flavor. The signature tanginess is what makes it a legendary hot sauce that can be used on just about anything. It has been at the center of dinner tables since 1929 and is still heating things up today. You're definitely going to want to try every flavor.
Maul, over the weekend, I tried the sauteed garlic.
How was it?
It was really, really good. It had a lot of flavor, the right amount of kick. Put it on my fried chicken.
You ever try putting hot sauce on popcorn? It's beautiful.
It's very, very good. Maul, as a vegan, do you put hot sauce on your fruit?
I put hot sauce on just about anything that I eat.
Put Texas Pete on there. Texas Pete, sauce like you mean it. Visit TexasPete.com and use the store locator to find Texas Pete products and purchase sauces and get recipe inspirations. And use the promo code podcast23 for 23% off at TexasPete.com.
Oh, I'm having fun. Hey, so I'm going to give these props, first of all, on their script reading. because you know when you do ads, you got to read the little script they give you and hit all your points.
Actually, no, I don't know that.
I know that. I know that. Look, I don't even get paid for ads, but I know that because I've been around the block. But that's incredibly hard to do, to read a script and make it sound natural and try to inject some humor in. So shout outs to them for that. But who's being played here? The advertisers or the person who's doing the advertising?
I think first and foremost, it's the audience. It's saying, I don't really have regard for you, even though you're willing to spend your time and your attention on the thing that we're creating. I'm going to deliver it to you peppered with these interruptions. Because, in fact, they even call it that. It's a commercial interruption, a commercial break, right? And well, what's happening here? You're actually breaking the flow of something. And we can review these critically, but after that, what you look at is we're all being played by this. As an audience member, I'm being played by it. If you force me to read, I mean, how awful is that? Because it comes off now as an endorsement. Now I'm not just being paid by this advertiser, but I have to lend my personality and my credibility to that. I get when they play the Scratchers ad on there and they're not participating in the advertisement itself. It's just product placement on their show. I still don't like it. But now you're becoming an endorser of these different things that may not comport with your own values and your own beliefs.
I think audiences are grateful for it. I'm not saying I think that's a good thing, but I think audiences today are like, hey, I'm so grateful. This is somebody that I enjoy listening to, and advertisers make it possible for me to get it for free. How do I know this? First of all, we get flack all the time for not taking advertisements on this show. So I do know there are a lot of people out there who disagree with that and who dismiss that as like some kind of pretentious or self-righteous stance. So it's very clear to me that there are a lot of people who reject the philosophy of no advertisements. I don't know if these guys get a bunch of comments like, I can't believe you took a commercial for lottery. I think that's just such a normal thing that people expect that to come with the territory. And they're like, I enjoy listening to these guys, and I'm really grateful for the advertisers who make this possible that I can listen without paying $10 a month for YouTube. I think people love it.
I don't think they love the commercials. I agree with you that they're willing to tolerate them in order to receive something. I was watching a movie with my wife this past week, and it was on this new streaming service called Freevee. And it was the only way to watch it, at least I thought at the time. So I turned it on, and about 20 minutes in, a commercial pops up on the streaming service, and I immediately just turned it off. I'm not watching a movie that's interrupted by commercials, just period. Yeah. And eventually I found a way to pay for it. Now, I understand that my stance is radical. I would much rather pay for the thing and remove the advertisements from it. Or here's the other side of it. If I couldn't find a way to pay for it, I'd just rather go without. Yeah. I would personally rather go without than constantly be advertised to. So where I disagree with you is I don't think people love it. I don't think they're grateful for it. I think they're willing to tolerate it because it is the delivery mechanism that creates the least amount of friction to then send this creation to their audience. However, I want to posit that there are other ways to do this. And that's all I'm asking our audience with this exercise is recognize if you're willing to tolerate commercials, I'm not mad at you. I don't have a self-righteousness around it in the sense that I don't think it's morally wrong to do commercials. I just think it's gross. If TK pukes on the street in front of our studio, I don't think he's morally wrong for doing that. But it's okay for me to be grossed out by that as well. I'm also not wrong for being grossed out by your puke. I think it's a natural, and by the way, we know it's natural. If you see kids react to advertisements that interrupt their shows or their videos, they panic. Uh-oh, what's wrong? It's broken. There's great videos of cute kids saying my TV's broken because an ad interrupted their focus, what they were paying attention to. And our commitment at The Minimalist is that we're not going to do that. One way you can help us do that is by subscribing to our Patreon. You don't have to. If you can't afford it, totally understand. We create things for free that are still advertisement free. We have a minimal episode every week that is standalone. It adds value by itself. But if you really want to support us and keep the podcast 100% advertisement free, the best way to do that, patreon.com/The Minimalist. Coming up on the private podcast, we're going to answer a few fams questions and got a whole lot more to talk about in Alabama. But first, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hello, this is Patreon supporter Kathy. I've always wanted to do an experiment and shave my head. Friends and family told me, don't do it, you'll hate it. I did it. I felt free. I let go of dozens of products to control my wavy locks. I can take my hat off and not have hat hair. Do I miss my long hair? Yes. Did I shave my head again? Yes. I like the simplicity.
All right, y'all. We'll see you on Patreon for the full 2-hour maximal edition of episode 418, which includes answers to a bunch more questions. Questions like, where does my fear of failure come from? Why do we spend so much time trying to be accepted by everyone else? If your podcast stays away from political discussions, why do you have to bring religion into it? This will be an interesting discussion. Also, we got a bunch more questions for Erwin and the Minimalist over on the private podcast. Also, this week, a private minimalist home tour from one of our listeners, a minimalist family with a decluttered home, and they have a 10-month-old child. Plus, much, much more of less. If you want to hear all that, you can visit us on the private podcast, patreon.com/The Minimalist, or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our podcast archives all the way back to episode 001. By the way, Patreon is now offering free trials, so if you'd like to test drive our private podcast, you can join for 7 days for free. And if you're still on the fence, here is a testimonial from one of our lovely Patreon subscribers. Rosanna says, I decided to invest in my personal development by becoming a patron. Your private podcast is immensely educational and informative. Thank you, minimalists, for helping me live a more meaningful life in so many ways. Decluttering not just my stuff, but the emotional clutter and all the difficult things that get in the way. Wow. Thank you so much, Rosanna. And big thanks to our guest today, Erwin Raphael McManus. You can check out his new book. It's called Mind Shift, and also his podcast is called Mind Shift as well. We'll put links to both of those in the show notes. That is our minimal episode for today. If you leave here with just one message, let it be this. Love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.